everybody, Dacob here. Welcome back to the Fashion Bunker. It is that time of the month. Top 5 fragrances for the month of September. And this month, I will do a special presentation. We're going to go back in history, go back in time, and then from time move towards the future. So everything is chronological. I'm feeling the history vibes, and I'm beginning with 1955. I want to wake up in the morning and really having that 50s vibe. This Pour Monsieur was released in 1955, and I want to feel its freshness, the oak moss in here, as much oak moss as we can still get due to the new IFRA reformulations or whatever have you, policies and regulations out there. It still is amazing. It's the eau de toilette. It is fresh and citrusy in the top, but it has a warmth in the dry down that not all you could call them citrusy fragrances have. This one turns very warm on me. It's really, really delicious. The fact that it's from 1955 and the oldest fragrance that I'm going to showcase to you this month of my favorites. The fact that the oldest one in terms of release dates is also the first one of the day. It's perfect. It just matches perfectly. And then here's a surprise entry. I'm enjoying this one very, very much. So we have 1955. By the way, also the year that the 255 was released. Second fragrance is very rare. I think it's also discontinued. I've had it for quite a while and I use it often, but it is Balenciaga's Hohang or Hoang or Hohang. Hohang. I mean, Jesus, okay. The puns are endless with this one. It still has the old school Balenciaga BB logo on the top. So this is an eau de toilette. This one is really delicious. It is marketed, or was back in 1971 when it was released, marketed for men. However, as we always say, fragrances are genderless. I know you guys still keep asking me a lot, Dacob, in the comments or sending me messages asking me, Dacob, can I buy this or that perfume? Are they for men or for women? Don't stop asking me those questions. I can't answer that for you. If you don't feel comfortable wearing something that's marketed for a man or for a woman, or the opposite gender of your gender, or whatever your gender may be, that's on you. But to me, I never watch marketing in terms of if something is for men or for women. I really could not care less. I wear what smells good on my skin, to my nose. And that's all I care for when it comes to fragrances. So Hohang is a very interesting perfume. You could, if you don't know how it smells like, it's kind of like a much more sophisticated and deeper version of Chanel's Boy. It has that touch in it. Of course, this one is even more cottony. This one is even more like wearing your boyfriend's white shirt in the morning, but it's kind of freshly ironed. It's not from the shirt. It's not a walk of shame type of shirt, but it's more the shirt as freshly washed and ironed, and it has that starchy touch to it. When a white cotton shirt, it has also starch in it so that it helps it iron out. That's the feeling this one gives me. So you could start with the freshness, almost like a shower effect, and then you go into that ready to conquer the day, afternoon. This would be noon and afternoon. So from the 70s, 1971, and actually back to Hohang a little bit, just the color of this bottle, this is a typical 70s color. The whole color combo of this type of amber gold, white on gold, and then this Bordeaux brownish, very red, containing quite a bit of red in it, color is so typical for the 70s. Eau de toilette, look at that. Their old font, really beautiful. So anyway, this is also a very typical 50s color, by the way, these like elegant grays. And then we move to the browns. And then from there, we go into the 80s, 1981. 1981 sees the release of ANTAEUS by Chanel. Now, ANTAEUS is reflecting light. Let me try to cover it up somehow so it doesn't reflect the light as much. That's better. ANTAEUS was in the 80s a powerhouse Chanel fragrance. It was Chanel's, you see they label it Pour Homme, doesn't matter really. It has a lot of honey in there. It was labeled as the Chanel interpretation or rendition of a powerhouse 80s fragrance for men. That today, it's been toned down. It's not as powerful as it was in the 80s, but for today's fragrances and today's fragrance standards, it's still a powerhouse fragrance. You could check out my review of ANTAEUS also on my YouTube channel. I shall post the link in the description box underneath this video, but also probably maybe at the end of this video as well. I have made a very in-depth review of ANTAEUS. It's interesting that this one is in the middle of my day because it kicks a very strong punch. It has very strong character. It knows what it wants. And let's say 4 to 5 p.m. That's when I would apply this one. It sets the tone for the end of the working day. You might have some meetings that are important. You want to be sharp. You want to be at your best sharpness, and you want to be awake. This is the one that's going to keep you awake. It's going to keep you sharp, and it's going to let you completely kick butt at any meeting, because it just, I don't know, it's going to give you that confidence. It is a very, very big confidence booster. However, don't spray it too close to the skin. You want to apply it like from a distance like that. You want just a little bit of the fog of the mist hitting your arm. If you kind of just do a little puddle thing, doesn't always work very well. So if you're going to wear it to a meeting, distance it and let it fall over your skin just like a powder. You could also spray it on your chest, away from your chest, and then put the shirt on and let the shirt absorb some of the perfume. It's going to keep the perfume fresher for a longer period of time. So especially if you're giving a speech or you're talking or you're doing some sort of presentation, usually your chest area tends to heat up more in that moment, and then you're going to just get kind of wafts of that smell into your nose while you're talking, and it's going to be like a refreshing drink while you're talking. So this one is really great. From the 80s, 1981, we are moving into the 90s. And for those of you who follow my YouTube channel already know, I have just reviewed this one and I am loving it to bits. 1993 sees the release and the launch of Classique Eau de Toilette by Jean-Paul Gaultier. A little tag is falling there. Check out the review. I just posted it. It's a very in-depth review of the 90s and of this fragrance. This one is very special. After you've finished your working day, ANTAEUS kind of concludes that you're shifting into the evening. And what do you do in the evening? In the evening, you go to the movies, to a theater, to the opera, to a play, or you could also go to a party, depending if it's the end of the week or the middle of the week or the beginning of the week, or you could just stay home, doesn't matter. But this one in particular is perfect if you do decide to go out and if you do decide to enjoy the evening with, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, with yourself, just with friends, brothers, sisters, whatever have you. It will counter a little bit everything that you've done up to that moment, but I have to say, and I've been trying it out, it does blend really well with these, and topping them off throughout the day with this one will add a little bit of a kick, but it's not as sharp edged as, for example, Thierry Mugler fragrances would be. This one adds a little bit of a mist and a fog through which you reminisce of times that have gone, but you do remember them, and it's really about remembering the good times. Classique is just that classic, so it will make you feel a little bit of the rose, a little bit of the fresh ginger, and the ginger is there's just a hint of it in the Eau de Toilette, especially in the opening, and it will refresh you in the evening. It'll give you a little bit of a boost, a little bit of a sparkly champagne-y type of boost before the roses kick in, before the vanilla kicks in and settles in and creates a very, very luscious, delicate, almost ice creamy, but warm ice creamy feel on your skin. It's really that delicious. So it also sets the tone for whatever pleasurable encounters you wish to have later on in the evening or in the night. Now the fifth fragrance, as we're done with the 90s, we go into the 2000s. 2004 sees the release of Cologne Blanche by Dior. This one, unfortunately, has been discontinued. Dior just discontinued it. When Demachy took over, this one was the first one to leave. This one was a Ghana. It's a pity because Cologne Blanche is amazing. It is one of the original 3 that were launched, bottle designed in collaboration with Hedi Slimane, fragrance not, just the bottle. Doesn't want to stay the way I want it to stay. Come on. Now, Cologne Blanche was one of the first 3 released in 2004, the first 3 being Bois d'Argent as Cologne concentration in 125 ml, 250 ml, and 400 ml, or 450 ml, can't remember. So Bois d'Argent, Eau Noire, and Cologne Blanche. Those are the original 3. The original 3 Maison Dior, they call them Maison Dior today. Back in the day, they were called just the 3 Dior Privé or the 3 Dior exclusives. Cologne Blanche is super fresh, warm. It is so typical of the early 2000s. If some of you still have one of the first bottles of Dior Homme, the Eau de Toilette, there's a similarity there. I mean, they're not the same fragrance, but they are similar. And they kind of follow the same philosophy. Dior Homme, the Eau de Toilette, which was the first one released of the Dior Homme range, today doesn't have the same smell, really. I mean, you kind of know it's still Dior Homme, but it's way different from the character it had when it was released in the 2000s. Cologne Blanche is a more sophisticated version of Dior Homme, and it is quite different in the dry down, obviously, but it doesn't deliver what you would expect from a cologne, meaning it doesn't deliver all that citrusy, fresh tones like, you know, what we have in Pour Monsieur. That this is kind of like a cologne, you know, but it's not a cologne, obviously, because it's an eau de toilette, and it's a 50s type of cologne, so it's more intense and strong. This one reinterprets and redefines the whole concept of cologne within the 2000s spectrum. Now envision the Hedi Slimane Dior Homme type of silhouette, skinny guy, almost like a rocker, no muscle tone whatsoever, very sophisticated, long hair, not always coiffed, a bit of a rebel, but also very much within a uniform that was given back in the day. So this fragrance matches that to a T, except of course if you abstract it from that and you give it another context, it becomes its own animal. I don't want to say beast, it's not that powerful, but it does have really good longevity. Now the good thing about this one is that this one connects us to the beginning. We have a full-blown fragrant history in this arch right over here with these 5 fragrances. So a cologne, a modern type of cologne, very 2004, ends the day while this one begins it the next morning. It's almost like Groundhog Day, or one of those movies where you wake up in the morning and everything kind of rewinds and sets. You push repeat, you push reset, and then you're kind of set back into time. And that's the concept that I'm playing with. I'm playing with the concept of time with these fragrances lately. And I'm loving the idea of having them related to the time in which they were released, because I'm really trying to feel lately much more a smell, understanding the smell as connected to the time it comes from. The context within which it was created and released. Why this particular type of smell for that particular decade or year. And so when you go through a spectrum, chronological spectrum of fragrances throughout the day, it's a new concept. Let's just call it a new concept. I haven't really spoken often in my videos. In particular, this is the first time I'm making a selection of top 5 fragrances for a month that are chronologically set in place. But it is definitely a concept to consider when playing and toying and experimenting and smelling fragrances, because history has a way of repeating itself in the worst of ways, rarely in the best of ways. And fragrances kind of have a similar thing of repeating themselves. You know, we reapply fragrances every day. Well, for those of us who love perfumes, right? You put a perfume on every day. It doesn't matter if it's the same perfume or if you have a different perfume for every day. The fact that you reapply a perfume every day is already a repetition. And so adding to that repetition, to that concept of kind of me wanting to consciously acknowledge the fact, not just leave it to routine, not even thinking about it anymore. Yeah, sure, the next day begins, I put on a new perfume. I want to be conscious about it. And I want to know exactly for what reason I'm doing what. Sometimes it's just a mood out of a certain type of mood, I want to smell a certain type of fragrance, but now I want to be conceptual. So I'm trying to contextualize and conceptualize time through fragrances. Because also each and every one of these fragrances on your own skin has a time. They have a lifespan. You spray them on, they have their head notes, top notes, heart notes, and then they hit the dry down and they're gone. So that time is, it's fleeting. Or in perfume terminology, this time is evaporating. So that layer of time I want to add to the layer of the context of time in which these fragrances were released. So throughout the day, I literally go through several decades. 50s, 60s are not represented here, but we got 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. So that's 50, 60, 70, 89. It's 60 years. It's basically 6 decades. 60s are missing, but it's a 6-decade span of smell, of olfactory references and experiences in only one day. And that to me is extremely fascinating. And it's just one of those many, 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 many reasons you can add to my already humongous list of reasons why I love perfume so much. And of course, each and every one of them also triggers a certain memory in me, certain emotion, certain thought process, and then acknowledging the fact when, in which year each one of them was released, because we don't really do that nowadays. You just buy perfume you heard about or you like the way it smells, but who really gets into when they were really released? What was the time frame in which they were released? Well, I do that. I do that all the time, and I think it's very fascinating to connect that to the smell and to just the concept of the time. Once you've done that actively and consciously, then you can kind of break the walls of time because you're aware of the year you're living in now while you're wearing one of these fragrances, but you're also aware of the time these fragrances were made in. So all of a sudden, you're traveling through time. You're literally traveling through time, and these are the keys that you can use to travel through that time. Okay, enough esoterics. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this video. If you have, please do thumb it up and let me know what you think about my selection this month or my selection for this 6-decade period, and let me know what your favorites are. And also think about it. If you were to classify through a decade, one day of your using a perfume or using scents, if you have several, put them in chronological order and see what comes out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Love you. Never give up on love. Bye.